Now in this section we will discuss the use of the measurement tools and how to perform the measurements. First of all, your greatest accuracy should be reserved for measurements in the CT images, whether in axial, coronal, or sagittal, or if we use our CPR function in a later section, we'll show you the measurement feature there. But 3D is fairly accurate. Of course, pano imaging doesn't have the measurement tool activated to it, at least not for distance. Now, if we want to measure a function, first of all, after we survey and pick a section out in any of the frames, we can launch a particular screen, or you can stay in the 3-in-1 format, whatever one wishes. Go up to the upper toolbar, and you'll notice the last one is the measurement icon. It looks sort of like a piano, if you will, a little ruler. So if you click it, it's going to open up these tools in the toolbar underneath the measurement tool. Generally, the most widely used function in the toolbox is going to be the measurement distance icon. So if one holds the arrow to these particular icons, they'll tell you what these are. But for distance, what you do is you point your arrow to it, left click it, it's now highlighted blue, and now you can take your caliper, and with the upper portion here, in this case the upper ridge, I'm going to left click it, I'm going to drag and release, this being the mandibular canal here. So once that's performed, you have a measurement up top. If you look, the length is going to be in millimeters. Mean, max, and min are numbers that are displayed with the pixel density along the line that you have created. So that's all these bottom 3 or 4 numbers mean, standard deviation obviously. And then the top number is the most accurate in terms of what we are looking for when we activate the distance. Okay. If we left click it once, we have a dotted line that connects, and notice the box is color coded on the outer periphery as well. So we have a selection for distance and length. We can also measure the cross section or width. Again, pick a section. In this case, I'm just measuring from the cancellous leading edge to leading edge in the cancellous region. So I'm going to left click it, drag, and I get to the other edge of the cancellous bone. I'm going to release it, and now we have the length for the cross-sectional measurement. Okay, so that's how you can quickly measure for distance. To delete these, you can go over to, well, the quick way is if you right-click it and just hit delete, the numbers in the line will go away. The other method is if you come across to this red X as a delete, you can left-click it, drag down to the numbers, point the arrow anywhere in the number field, left-click, and it will be released. If one wishes to keep the toolbar open, rather than closing it, you can hit the arrow, the blue arrow. It says selection. Think of it as neutral. In your automobile, you're in neutral position, but you still have the ability to, either select these particular functions. So the other thing about the neutral position is, let's say you do a measurement, and we'll go back to what we just did. Left click it, drag, and release. And let's say we want to keep that measurement on the screen. What we can do is left click the selection button, and then as we scroll back and forth, it maintains that frame that has the measurement on it. So as long as we keep the toolbar open and have the arrow in the selection position or neutral, we have this ability to freeze what we measured in that particular slice. To quickly get out of measurement tool, click it again, and all of your measurement tools in that toolbox has been removed. And once again, though, we're going to left click it, we're going to open the toolbox, and we're going to go now to this feature called line segment. Line segment is if you want to measure apart from different sections. I want to show you a method that was taught to me by one of our dentists, Dr. Peck. What he used this for is, let's say we wanted to measure between in the axial plane. In this case, we have implants here, and let's say we just wanted to measure to get the distance away from the implants or whatever we're measuring. We can actually go to the line segment. You can click it. We can start. Let's just start from the outer edge here, just as an example. Once the caliper is in place, left click it, So we're just going to the outer edge of the border of the implant. We're going to left click it to the next edge. We're going to click it again and just go across the transverse portion of that particular implant, left click it again, and go to the other resident tooth that is in place. With double left click it, we get a total of that section. And then when we click the total section, we can see the segments between each individual segment that we measure. So you have the ability to use the line segment if you want to use it in that regard. So to delete it, right click it, and you're able to delete it very quickly. Now for the next one, I probably won't use this very much, but we are going to show you its feature for measuring relative length. Relative length is simply if you want to measure in a comparison for just in a percentage. So for instance, here we just take this portion of the maxilla, and here we have the right side versus the left. So let's say we want to just measure the length of the right versus left. So here we'll start, go down to the ridge of the bone, and here's baseline 1. It's always going to be the first measurement, always be baseline 1. Now if we go to the second measurement, we're just going to left click it, drag it down, and release it to the edge. So what we're saying is this is the left side is 83% of what the right side is. So that's basically how you use that if you prefer to use that feature at all. Now the next actually the next angular measurement, actually I should say the angle is also a feature that we can have in the toolbar, and we're going to measure the angle between two different locations. Here in this left side in the mandible, it has a nice curvature, so this would be a good example. We're going to just double left click to launch it, make it easier to see. Let's say we want to measure from the here from the mandibular canal up to the ridge. We're going to left click it into position, and let's say for loading we just want to say, well, we want our actual implant, the abutment here, to come up a little bit at an angle, let's say. So you can measure that, and now you get an opportunity to see what the angle is between those locations if you wish. So you can plan accordingly. Of course, that would be probably a pretty steep angle, but one can again just make adjustments that way if you want to click on the boxes. Anyway, this is the angle measurement feature. These next four icons are really used for looking at the density of tissue over a specific area that is selected. One can select either an ellipse, and if you click this, well, this is the ellipse, I'm sorry, and then this is basically going to be your rectangle. So let's just demonstrate this very quickly. Click a rectangle, and if you come down into the field, most notice it's going to be highlighted blue. Once you draw in, you can have a rectangular shape. Okay, so it gives you an area too, mean, max, and a minimum. Notice that the cancellous bone has a wide area of the density that's selected. So if one wishes to choose any of these shapes, it can be done. Now, let's go to the next shape, the ellipse. So we draw an ellipse. Let's stay more in the cortical bone just for an example. So here's cortical bone, basically in the ellipse feature, and you can see that we have less variation because the cortical bone is a little bit more, a lot more in a particular range. So anyway, that is the ellipse with the cortical bone. This is the polygon. Polygon, I like it because you have the ability. It's like an etch-a-sketch. You can trace it out according to the borders that you wish to select. It's more freehand. That's why you can select the polygon. And now, again, back to the cancellous bone, you can see it has pretty much a wide deviation versus the other structures. So anyway, that is the real feature of using these three measurements here, whether it's rectangle or ellipse or polygon. The profile icon is dedicated for mostly a straight line and giving one the ability to judge densities along a straight line. For instance, here, let's just take this particular implant here in the right lower mandible. I'm going to left click it through the cortical bone, and I'm going to go through a portion of cancellous down through the metallic portion of the implant and out to the other side of the cortical bone. Then when we release it, we come up top here, and we can see that here is our measurements through the divisions that we have measured through. And here you could see the densities selected. Of course, you've got the cortical bone here, a little higher ridge. And as you go through the cancellous bone, it dips down some. And then you've got your very high, very dense structure, which is, of course, the implant, and then out to the other side through the cortical bone. And so this is all that we're saying here, is that you have a linear line, and you can judge between the profile of the medium dense, less dense, medium less dense, very dense, and then out through the cortical bone, medium dense as well. So that is the feature of the profile key. Now the cube view here, we can basically ignore the 3D cube view. Even though we activate it, it doesn't really have a function here, so it's not necessary to even activate it. So kind of ignore it, if you will. Remember that this Prexian software was adapted from medical software, so some items have transferred over from the medical grade software, and this is one of those features. To simply close out the toolbar, just click on the toolbar icon itself, and your measurement toolbar will go away. Now, you also have the ability to take a calibrating. Notice that there's calibration marks with all of the images, and what we could do is just double click on one to load. You can actually grab the bar itself and scroll over the bar and put across any area to determine what your measurements are. On the bottom you can see each of these individual divisions is 5 millimeters. So this is a 5 millimeter portion here, this is 5 millimeter portion here, etc., etc. Now notice too, when one zooms up or down, the measurements divisions will increase or decrease accordingly. Okay, so be cognizant of that, and just realize that you can grab this bar and move it across as well. So that about concludes it for measurements, and we will also show measurements with the CPR function as well.